Hey everyone, YouTube's DOT physical expert Dr. Nuesse back with another video. In this one I am going to walk you through step by step what a drug test looks like, whether this is a pre-employment drug test or a return to duty drug test. This is what a standardized drug test will look like or should look like. And I am an expert on the Department of Transportation drug testing, which basically sets the highest standard. So they really set the standard. The office really can't have a lot of wiggle room as far as the procedures. So the procedures that I show you should be pretty close to the procedures that you see when you go in to get your drug test, with maybe a little bit of variation just based on how the office is set up. So in just a second, I'm actually going to take you into my office and show you step by step how we perform a drug test, answer questions like, are we going to actually search you for contraband? Are we going to be watching as you give your sample? Things like that. But first, if you're watching this video, you might be concerned about drug testing, and the best way to actually pass a drug test is to be clean when you go in. And the best way to know if you're clean when you go in is to take home tests. So I'm going to leave a link to my preferred home test in the description box below. Definitely a good idea to check that out if you want to know if you are clean before going in to take your drug test. Again, it's not foolproof, but it will give you a really good indication of if you are potentially going to pass your official drug test. And secondly, I'm going to be coming out with a video very soon about ways that we, the provider, actually try to catch people cheating on their drug tests. So please stay subscribed to this channel so you don't miss that next upcoming video. Okay, so when you first come in to get your drug test done, the first thing that we are going to do is we need to validate your identification, and we usually do that simply by checking your driver's license. The very next thing that we're going to do is we're going to explain all of the procedures to you. We're going to explain to you the paperwork. We're going to explain to you how we are going to perform the test, how we are going to send out your samples. All of the procedures are going to be explained to you up front. Next, we are going to be asking you to remove any unnecessary articles of clothing like jackets or hats, and also leave bags and purses before you go in to actually give your sample. We are also going to then be checking your pockets, and we will also check your wallet, although you can keep your wallet with you. Now, we have people put their belongings in a cubby and they actually have the room locked, so your belongings will be secure while you're going to give your sample. All right, and then right after that, the provider is actually going to have a little bit of paperwork to fill out. This is step 1 on the CCF form, and you can see that here. All right, and the very next thing that's going to happen is we are going to ask you to wash your hands. Now, washing your hands is not just a sanitary thing to do, but it's actually required to wash your hands at this point because we want to make sure that you don't have anything kind of under your fingernails you might be able to use to contaminate your sample. So if you do not wash your hands at this point, or if you refuse to wash your hands at this point, it is considered a refusal to test, and a refusal to test is counted as a positive result. So washing your hands at this point is required. Okay, so it's at this point that we can open up the collection kit and we can actually give you the collection cup that you're going to use to give us a sample. And then we can actually walk you to the restroom. Now, we are actually going to walk you over to the restroom. You cannot go alone. We have to be with you. And then we're going to give you a few final instructions. Number 1 is we need the sample back within 4 minutes because temperature is a critical factor. Number 2, you are not to wash your hands. And number 3, you are not to flush the toilet. So there's 2 types of bathrooms that can be used for you to give us your sample. One is the multi-stall type of bathrooms where there's several different toilets, all with separations between them. And the other is a single toilet with an enclosure. So we use the single toilet with an enclosure, a single bathroom, which is more common. So in the first case, if it's multiple bathrooms, multiple stalls in one bathroom, then the provider will be standing outside of one of the stalls, but inside of the bathroom. In our case, we will be standing just outside of the closed door. Now, here is what the bathroom is typically going to be set up like. First off is the handles are typically either taped off or removed from the sink so that you cannot run the water, obviously. All of the soaps and disinfectants and hand sanitizers, those are all taken out. The toilet will typically have a bluing substance in it that prevents you from using it to taint your sample or to add to your sample, and then the top of the toilet is typically taped down, again, so you can't get into that top part of the toilet. So as soon as you are finished, and again, time is of the essence here, you want to come out of the bathroom and you're going to hand us your sample, and then we will immediately check it for things like suspicious odors or temperature or the color as well, and then we will walk you back to the original room that you were in. The provider then has a little bit more paperwork to fill out. This is step 2 on the CCF form that you can see here. And then we will go ahead and split and seal both of the specimen containers. So you give us one container and we actually split it into 2. And the reason we do this is in case one comes back positive and you want to contest the results, then they will use the second sample to test and see if it matches with the first sample. So the second is used as a backup, but you will usually, in almost all cases, have a split sample. So we will actually send in 2 samples to the lab. So both the provider and the donor then need to make marks actually on the seal of both containers. What we mark is the date, and then we will ask you to actually initial each of the seals. So once the samples are sealed, then we can allow you to wash your hands. Now, at this point, washing your hands is not a requirement. If you simply just don't want to, we're not going to force you to, or I wouldn't force you to. But again, another sanitary thing to do once you've used the bathroom. So at this point, you'll be able to wash your hands and then again, come back to where we are doing the paperwork. The next piece of paperwork is actually something that the donor, you are going to need to fill out, and this is just your basic information. As you can see here, your name, your signature, just basic contact information that the lab is going to use on the CCF form. And now that we have Step 5 of the CCF form completed by you, we can verify your signature and match it to your ID, which is very important, and at this point we will give your ID back to you. The provider, us, will then complete the last step in the paperwork, which is step 4. And then immediately following this, we can bag up the samples and we put the first copy into the bag to be transported to the lab, and then we will give the last copy, copy 5, to you to keep for your records, and the other ones we will send to either the employer, the medical review officer, or we will keep one of the forms as well, so that makes up all 5 copies. And at this point, you are actually free to leave. So at this point, you will either hear that you have gotten a positive result, a negative result, or option 3 is sometimes the medical review officer will want to speak with you. And the most likely reason for this is that he sees possibly a prescription drug came up on your test and he wants to talk to you and see if you have a prescription for this particular substance. And if so, generally what happens is they do not count that as a positive result. I will be doing a video in the future again about different prescription drugs that can come up as positive results. So don't be too worried if you're taking a prescription, because generally the medical review officer will allow that to go as long as you do have a prescription. All right, so I hope that was very helpful and informative. Again, stay subscribed here. Check below for my preferred at-home drug testing kit. And until next time, everybody, stay safe.